So on the tour, Paul's publicist was a really good guy. His name was Jeff Baker. He was kind of like a scruffy, hippie type, very cool guy. And he liked me. He befriended me, and he sort of looked out for me, which was nice, because when I started the tour, I didn't know anybody. It was I was the only American. They were all British, and there were people that I didn't know, but I became friends with quite a few of them. And Jeff Baker was British also. Great guy, and he would try to include me in things. So he said, Michael, I'm doing an interview with Rolling Stone magazine tonight in the hotel restaurant. We're going to have dinner. I said, oh, cool. He said, why don't you join us? So it was just me, Rolling Stone journalist named David Frick, who was actually like the biggest writer in Rolling Stone. I think he was even probably the editor or something like that. But he was the head writer at that time, I think. David Frick, Fricke, I think. And me. And it was really interesting. He wasn't going to have access to Paul, as far as I know, but he wanted to hear, the inner workings of the tour and so on and so forth. And Jeff Baker, the publicist, was a very good raconteur type, a good speaker and stuff like that. But I noticed what he was trying to do. Paul McCartney had, and still has, I imagine, a very clean-cut image, he's no outlaw, he's no Keith Richards, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I noticed what Jeff was doing in the intro was he was trying to toughen Paul up, make Paul sound like a badass to the journalist from Rolling Stone. So he's telling him all these stories, hey, here's an exclusive for you. No one's ever told this before. But Paul, when he went to America to get camera and film equipment so they could shoot that Film Magical Mystery Tour. What they did was, the real purpose was, they filled up all the cameras with LSD. And they smuggled it back. So Jeff thinks he's leaking out a juicy story that'll get into Rolling Stone. And then he talked about Paul gambling and this and that. And the guy never printed any of that. I read the article. And unfortunately later, Jeff Baker got fired. Maybe I don't know how many years later, less than 10 years later, he was fired by Paul, and he had been with him for quite a while. He'd probably been with him for more than 10 years, I'm sure. He got fired for, Paul was going to do something in public that he wanted to be private, and Jeff had tipped off the press, like a photographer.
Oh, okay.
And the photographer showed up, Paul found out what happened, and he fired Jeff. The rumor is that Jeff became homeless after that. Was seen sweeping streets and stuff, but I don't know if that's true or not.
Hopefully that's a rumor.
Yeah, but I didn't really know about gambling. I think he was just making stuff up. But when I got back to New York, I started not gambling, but I said, I might as well. I made a little money on this tour. Why don't I start playing the lottery? I started buying lottery tickets, which I'd never done before. And that's addictive, so I kept buying them, and I never win, because of course you never win.
Yeah.
They call it a voluntary tax, essentially, because the money goes to the state, and you're volunteering to give them this money for nothing in return, except for a slip of paper.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm doing it, and loser, so I just throw it on the floor. And, in a few weeks, the tickets were everywhere, on the couch, the tables, the floor, just useless tickets there. My brother lives in Boston. He comes to visit me, and he comes in, and he sees all these tickets. There's many, a whole bunch, hundreds. Says, Michael, did you ever think that you might have a gambling problem there? And I said, no, of course I don't have a gambling problem. Why do you say that? And he said, well, I don't know. Look at all these tickets. And he goes, look, here on the back of the ticket, there's a number. It says, if you think you have a gambling problem, you can call this number. Why don't you give them a call? And I said, all right. And he said, all right. And he went back to Boston eventually. Calls me like a week later. He says, hey, did you call that number on the ticket? No, I didn't call the number. I bet it. I actually thought that might be a winning number for gambling. It wasn't.
I bet.
All right. Let's get back to the Beatles here.